Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Health Discourse with Sakshi and Sushant. So, hi, Sushant. Good morning.
Good morning, Sakshi.
So, folks, this is our first winter podcast of this year and this season, and we would like to cover a lot of things in that. And let us start the discussion. So, Sushant, my first question to you is about preventive health. Okay, so there are a lot of, as we see, there are a lot of startups that are coming up for preventive health, and they're saying
Hmm.
that they have certain tests and they have certain regime which will help people to prevent any sort of chronic health issues. Okay. Now, what is your take on that? Do you really think that these solutions will actually work or actually are working? Because as I
Hmm.
see from where I am seeing it, is that we do have a lot of diagnostic data for the past 20-25 years since when the pathologies have been quite common in India, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what exactly have we done with that data? We are having a lot of data of India. It's not that we don't have the data from the blood works. So what do you think is actually happening here?
Let me briefly tell you one basic aspect. So, when we talk of our body is a vessel for, you know, around millions of biochemical functions taking place every single second, right? Right from the time, uh, you eat something, what your microbes in your mouth are doing, how they are synthesizing various foods, how they are pre-digesting various foods, how the food is processed in small intestine, how your gut microbiome actually interact with the food, right? How immune system react to it, how your kidneys filter out, different waste products, right? How your gut talk to brain. All these are a combination of various biochemical functions taking place inside the body, right? And uh, when some of these functions go haywire, we do not. There's no, probably indication, and these most of these, changes in this what we call as biochemistry is asymptomatic in nature, right? And none of these blood tests actually could measure these changes, right? Or identify these changes. And this is the starting point of onset of metabolic and cellular abnormalities in the body, right? And then there will be more dysfunction in the other biological functions, and more and when there's a substantial number, more than 50%, 60% of these the abnormalities, then probably we are already leading a disease, right? Living with the disease, and then we these blood tests or these uh, digital variables would identify certain specific biomarkers, right? Which is just a summation or a summary of these tens of thousands of millions of transactions, right? So essentially, uh, they are not what these companies or these tests or these healthcare delivery data, what I call it, right? So we have, if you see globally, we have 10 raised to 24 bytes of healthcare delivery data. But again, the incidence of diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, Alzheimer's, dementia is increasing, right? So these data cannot get into the pathogenesis of various diseases or pathophysiology, changing the pathophysiology when we develop these diseases, right? So ideally, the starting point, if you really want to talk about preventative health, I'm not talking about the oral health, because again we all know that oral health is linked to every single disease, and still the healthcare system and these alternative health tech companies still consider mouth as a separate organ from the body, right? And that's the biggest disservice to the humanity, right? So ideally, the starting point is the smallest unit, which is your cells, and your body has what, around 40 trillion cells, 38 trillion cells, right? And again, around 50, more than a bit of 50% of the cells are microbial, right? So essentially, and when we talk of microbiome, again, some gut microbiome companies are sequencing microbiome, but again, they're just touching the surface of it, right? They're just looking at certain specific species of bacteria, so they've not got into deep-rooted understanding the interaction between microbiome and human host, right? So that is a big. So I don't call it a preventive healthcare. What they're doing is again another, version of, a reactive approach managing disease, just in a, tossed in a, or gifted in a different way, right? That's what I can say. Yeah.
Earlier, we had this. I think we've seen a lot of people having reservations about the weight loss medications, right? We have spoken about it quite a lot, and now we can see that people, a lot of the influencers who were into fitness industry, they have been now they are going after the supplements now, right? So I
And
just
some are
feel
some are not going up. Some are still maintaining a status quo lifestyle and all that, stupid jargons, right? So essentially, they.
I do understand that lifestyle is a major chunk of your health, right? It has a major.
But I'll tell you here, Sakshi, the lifestyle is the simple formula is lifestyle is equal to microbiome,
Yeah,
right?
I do get that. Yes, we have done that research at Gene Fitletics, but now what
Hmm.
I am willing to ask you is that, I mean, why is it that the fitness companies, specifically, if I have to say, they are going
Hmm.
after the chronic disease when they don't have any kind of a specialization in that area? Because, see, let's say from day one, if you were focusing on a problem like diabetes or chronic kidney disease or any other health issues,
Hmm.
then we it would have been understandable that you are focused in that area, right?
Hmm.
Now we can see that there are a lot of other fitness companies who are changing their niche. Earlier, they used to cater to 18 to 30 years of age people, and who are looking for bodybuilding and good lifestyle and all those things, cosmetic changes in the body. If I have to be very specific, now why is it that they're moving towards the diseases part where they're not special, where they do not specialize at all? I don't see a scientist working there. I don't see a research
They
going on
may
there.
see they may have scientists, but the problem is, they are problem on multiple fronts. First is that, uh, most of these companies, although they claim that they are in preventative healthcare, or they are having solution, or they are saying that obesity is the starting point of everything, right? No
Hmm.
doubt, obesity is one of the risk factors, primary risk factor for metabolic syndrome, but that's not the only factor. First thing, and again, the point is, all these companies have been operating for last 10 to 12 years, but again, if you see, the rate of obesity is not gone down,
I
right?
see that they're not even profitable. I mean, uh,
That's not our concern, right? That is their
I mean,
concern, right?
see, their cash flows is none of anybody's concern. But the thing is, they are. I mean, I see that they're funded, right? They have been given ample amount of funding, and despite that, they have not been able to manage their cash flows, which raises a big question mark on how they are managing their company. That's number one. Okay.
Hmm.
Secondly, I also see that the kind of content that these people push is quite misleading. It's not always
It's
scientifically
pseudoscience.
correct.
So I'll tell you,
Yes.
this is pseudoscience, and again, the point is that you and me have experience about this earlier, right? Maybe around a year back, that, these people, the problem is, as China has done, that influencer has to have certain subject matter expertise, right? So that should be implemented in India as well, right? So essentially, specifically for health influencer, right? Most of them, uh, read a summary of some paper and then start propagating something, right? But
See,
coming back,
I earlier mentioned that there are some people who really don't know how to interpret a clinical research.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had pointed that out specifically in our previous talks as well. That,
Hmm.
when you are reading a scientific research, there are hundreds of ways to interpret that, right? You can say that this is the absolute conclusion that you have come upon. You can say that the scientists are not able to conclude that, whoever has written that paper, right? There are multiple ample ways to
See,
interpret that, but
I'll tell you very simple thing here. So essentially, it needs, if you talk of preventive healthcare, it needs a lot of, investment of resources, time, and money, right? To
right.
understand. So there have been a lot of hypothesis has to be conducted. The hypothesis have to be validated, and those has to be applied on the real data points. And again, coming back on data points is something, the focus is on wrong data points. Healthcare delivery, again, most of these preventative healthcare companies are more focused on, again, same healthcare delivery blood test. And again, that is not a point of discussion today, but again, briefly, there are structural and functional issues with the blood test, and that's why we never benchmark our results with the blood test, again, because there have been, a lot of standard deviation. So standard deviation is as high as 30%. If you go to two different labs, you'll get two different results. Again, it has a bearing on multiple. So the way the sample is collected, processed, transported, stored, right? How the sample is shaken, stirred, number of these factors have an bearing on the results, right? Again, there isn't. So people will say there's an NABL accreditation, all the accreditation, but these accreditation are for not for the actually it is for the output, right, not for the process, right? So if you talk of process, how do we make sure that enable make sure that the standard deviation is reduced, right? First thing. Second thing is, even if you this let's assume the results are maybe close to optimal, right? Again, the issues, they give you a normal abnormal range, again, which is based on the your comparison with other unhealthy people. So you are less unhealthy or more unhealthy than other people, right? Then third aspect is that these cannot deep dive into what specific factors have caused that particular biomarker dysregulate abnormalities in that biomarker, right? Whether it is HbA1c, whether it is liver function, whether it is homocysteine, whatever it is, right? So again, those cannot deep dive into the change in the biochemistry that take place at least 15 years before you see the first symptom, right? So again, this is not a preventive healthcare. This is just a marketing jargon to maybe to
I think this is just another way to sell blood works, if you ask me. I mean, it is just the same. It's the only difference is that you are getting your sample collected from your
see this
home. Okay.
Sakshi, the thing is, over last 5 to 7 years, microbiome size has taken leaps and bounds. And again, these people will never accept the role of microbiome, right? And again, they are becoming irrelevant. So that's why they are just changing the marketing narrative. That's it.
Okay. So I now understand why you have answered that question now. So let's move to what is the correct approach to measure your health, right? We have time again. We have done a lot of videos on cellular health, on mitochondrial health, right? And I think today we can just take it very briefly that why cellular health and mitochondria should be important for an individual, and why
Hmm.
and how do you compare it with the blood work? Because from what I understand, that whatever toxins or nutrients, they come after metabolization of whatever foods you are eating and whatever is your lifestyle. The byproduct comes into the bloodstream, right? And that is what we are measuring. That is the kind of
That is
tox.
that is also, we're not measuring everything. There's no. So if you start with the health and longevity, which or the peak performance of our biology, right? The centerpiece of the biology is your cells, right?
That's correct.
Right. So every organ tissue have different cells, and cells have mitochondria, right? In the cytoplasm, cells have nucleus.
Just
It has.
can you just briefly tell us what is a mitochondria? I mean the people
So
coming from
so
scientific background may know, but not everybody. So
So
let's
let
let's
us let us go back to
simplify.
3.5 billion years ago, right? So we had single cellular organisms. There was no oxygen in the environment, right? And again, these folks were fermenting whatever they are in the environment, and as the fermentable fuel dissipate, and these used to die. These organisms used to die. These are single cell organisms, right? And then we had something called cyanobacteria,
Hmm.
photosynthetic cyanobacteria. Those were the first one. Those are not the first organism, but the first one to actually convert sunlight and other things, right? Even carbon dioxide into food, into energy, and the byproduct was oxygen. So it changed the entire environment, and this leads to oxygenation of the environment. And then there was an these specific certain ancestral bacteria, right, which is again I say is cousin of your gut bacteria, right? These
Mm-hmm.
ancestral bacteria actually engulfed in those. So when you have these lot of oxygen, the bigger host cells started coming up, and these ancestral bacteria engulfed in these cells, and instead of these cells digesting them, they maintain a symbiotic relationship, and these ancestral bacteria was nothing but mitochondria, right? Again,
Okay.
then these cyanobacteria also engulfed into the entire those cells, and that was how the living organisms, we had the different the cellular respiration started, and the aerobic respiration started. So, and again, these ancient bacteria is nothing but mitochondria. So mitochondria is actually generate energy using a process called oxidative for phosphorylation, which is oxygen, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
uses, the moment we breathe, it actually convert a lot of fuels what we have into adenine triphosphate ATP, which is the energy currency, and that fuels every cell, right? So essentially, that is a basic of, so mitochondria lies in the cytoplasm in our cells, and again, they are the centerpiece of everything. So you need mitochondria to produce energy, right? So that is very important. That is the key. That is, without energy you cannot survive, right? So that's why your health and longevity starts from your mitochondria, from your cell. Now when you are producing ATP, right? The mitochondria also, as a normal process, produces superoxide or free radicals, right? That's a normal process of it, right? And then our body has its own built defense mechanism, right? So there is, our body is capable of producing something called superoxide dismutase, right? And again, then glutathione and catalase, and a lot of these antioxidant defense mechanism, which actually maintains a redox homeostasis, right? So essentially, your mitochondria is producing energy, right? It is, as a process, it is also producing free radical, what we call a superoxide, and these are very harmful because they have three unpaired electrons in these superoxide. And again, your glutathione and superoxide dismutase is actually neutralizing them, right? Specifically, catalase is not found in every. So there are only three to four antioxidants which are found in mitochondria, which can enter the mitochondria, which is glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, and chlorophyll, right? Now, catalase is I think only found in the mitochondria of liver and heart, not everywhere, right? So superoxide dismutase, SOD, and glutathione is very important. Again, here it is very important to understand that as we age beyond 30 years, ability of our body to produce SOD, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione falls, right? And by the time we cross the age of 45, 50, our body does not produces it, right? So again, here it is very important to understand that your gut microbiome, right, plays a very important role in producing this SOD, catalase, and a specific enzyme called glutathione peroxidase, right? So this actually plays a very important role in neutralizing the free radicals. Now, your body biotransforms three amino acids, glutamate, cysteine, and glycine, into glutathione, right? And again, this is again influenced by your gut microbiome, because your gut microbiome plays a very important role in metabolism of these amino acids, and these amino acids gets inside the cell, inside the cytosol, and where it is synthesized into glutathione, right? And similarly, SOD again is produced by your gut microbiome, and again, it could enter your mitochondria, right? But here it is very important to understand that and stop me if you are not able to, if there's some I'm getting too much technical. So every cell has a cell membrane, right, which is a lipid membrane. So we need to have a lot of consumption of a lot of fats to maintain the structural fluidity of the cell membrane, right? Now, mitochondria has two. Mitochondria has an outer membrane and then an inner membrane, right? So there are porins in outer membrane which allows all the protein enzymes and glutathione and all these things to enter. But for the inner membrane, there are specific transporters, right? And again, since glutathione SOD are negatively charged particles, these the second inner membrane actually repels it. So essentially they are transporters required, and these transporters again carries glutathione and SOD inside the mitochondria, right? And they are, so again here this is very important. First thing is, remember that glutathione, mitochondria does not produce glutathione. Glutathione is synthesized in cytosol. Again, it is depending upon specific amino acids, non-essential amino acids, which our body produces, which is cysteine, glycine, and glutamate. Again, which are synthesized into glutathione in cytosol, and from there it is transported to mitochondria, where it passes through the outer membrane, which has porins, so it is not a difficulty. And again, for inner membrane, there are certain specific transporters that is again, that transports glutathione and SOD inside the mitochondria. And again, the activity of these transporters are further influenced by something called butyrate, because butyrate is again a short chain fatty acid produced by your gut microbiome. So butyrate, by having an metabolic and epigenetic impact on the cells, on the mitochondria, because it influences the mitochondrial health, so it could indirectly influence the activity of this transporter, right? So now what happens inside the mitochondria is that when your mitochondria is producing free radicals, right? So your SOD, right? And again, SOD needs a cofactor. So there are superoxide dismutase, there are SOD 1, 2, and 3. So one is, I think, something lying outside of the cell, extracellular matrix. One, three is inside the cell, and two is inside the mitochondria. And this is very important. Without SOD, we cannot survive, right? Now, SOD inside the mitochondria needs a particular cofactor, which is manganese, right? So it needs this cofactor to convert the superoxide, and again, superoxide can be because of the normal production of ATP, or it could be toxins your body is experiencing, which actually So let me go back once. So essentially, in mitochondria, the energy production, there's an electron transport chain. So there are protein molecules that pass these electrons, right? And that's the normal way it goes to cytochrome C, and there how ATP is produced, right? So essentially, if you have toxin, stress, inflammatory molecules produced by your microbiome, all these things could, damage this electron transport chain, and these protein molecules actually falls apart, and your mitochondria expands, right? So again, when they fall apart, these electrons become free radicals that further reduce the ATP production of the mitochondria. And again, mitochondria further expands, and after some time it explodes. So just visualize it. It explodes and it throws its parts at different parts inside the body, and this directly impacts the nearby mitochondria and cells, right? So ideally what is happening, that these mitochondria as a distributed network, they communicate to each other, they vote by chemicals, right? So essentially they could sense what is happening with the other mitochondria, and again it impacts the other cells in mitochondria. That's how the disease onset starts, right? So ideally, that is a normal way of how your mitochondria could either give you energy, or could, if it's defective, it could lead to disease such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer, right? So coming back to this, so this is a normal way. So SOD inside the mitochondria, when there's enough manganese, right, it could neutralize these superoxide, which could be via normal ATP production or via toxins, right? It could be neutralized into something called H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, right? And again, and this is further, neutralized by glutathione. So your peroxidase, which is again which oxidizes glutathione, it actually uh, converts this H2O2 into water, right? So again, SOD and glutathione work together, right, to neutralize this superoxide. And again, water is, it hydrates our body. So that is a normal process, right? Now, coming back to the glutathione aspect, right? So essentially, after the age of 30, you should have glutathione from your diet or from your supplements. And again, these could one way. Other way is obviously, since these supplements may not have that, they may not be able to survive stomach acid environment and a lot of these things. So again, if you, even if it survive it, it gets broken down to again these three amino acids, right? Glycine, cysteine, and glutamate. And again, this has to be metabolized by your gut microbiome to make sure that these are further synthesized inside the cell in the cytosol into glutathione, right? So essentially, that's a normal process, right? So there are other ways and means also so that you can get glutathione. So one is obviously consume these amino acids, which can improve the availability of these amino acids, or probably your gut microbiome can metabolize these amino acids so that it can be synthesized into glutathione. Again, SOD is something your gut microbiome plays a very important role in synthesis of SOD and catalase, right? Which are very essential for maintaining this redox homeostasis, right? So saying that these supplements are not going to work, it is wrong, because there are certain supplements such as there are something called liposomal glutathione. So it's a layer of fatty acid which travels so that it is not destroyed in the stomach acid. Or there's something called NAC and acetylcysteine, which is again, cysteine is an amino acid which can be metabolized into synthesized into glutathione, right? Again, certain gut bacteria also could improve the activity or enhance the activity of SOD, superoxide dismutase, right? Via nutritional cooperation. So essentially, there's these interaction between your microbiome, which is again happening within these, so as to improve the activity or the genes expression of these SOD, because SOD is again an enzyme, right? So, you need these after the age of 30. Your body cannot endogenously produce glutathione and SOD. So, obviously, you need to provide right substrate to your gut microbiome to produce this. Or you have to fix, if your gut microbiome is imbalanced, you have to fix the gut microbiome so that it could metabolize these non-essential amino acids, which could be a substrate for precursor for glutathione production inside the cytosol. And again, you have to make sure that your gut is producing enough butyrate that could influence the activity of these transporter carriers, which could carry glutathione and SOD inside the mitochondria via inner membrane, right? So supplements can help, but again, you have to understand your microbial biochemistry and how they interact with the mitochondria, how they impact your mitochondria. Because again, as I mentioned initially, that mitochondria and gut microbiome are cousins, right? So they work together, right?
Could you suggest any, I mean, generic supplements that will help? Because from what I understand, that glutathione is one of the things that you've been spoken about right now. But what are some supplements that will be helpful for cellular health and mitochondria?
So again, they depends upon you know every individual's biology. But I could tell you something. So first thing is, first you have to look at stabilizing the cell membrane, right?
Hmm.
So you need to have right amount of fatty acids, which is
Hmm.
again not the seed oils,
Hmm.
the single bonds and zero bond fats, which could be saturated fat, which could be your ghee, butter, right?
Now, saturated fat is again a controversial topic because every now and then we see people saying that saturated fat is causing heart disease, and there is a lot of misnomer about saturated fats, right? So I think we have
So,
cleared
so
it
let,
in a.
let me tell you about this. So let me briefly. So there is a specific saturated fat, which is palmitic acid, which is harmful, right? Right. And again, but what you need C15, which is a pentadeconic acid, which is an odd chain saturated fatty acid, which is key to maintain your cell structure and fluidity. Without that, your cells cannot sense extracellular matrix. It cannot produce nitric oxide, cannot stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, right? It makes your cells fragile. And we have discussed this: when your red blood cells are fragile, it is engulfed by the macrophages of the liver, and it leads to iron deposition, which leads to inappropriate glucose response and type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease and all those things. Second thing is, it is not LDL or saturated fat which causes heart disease. It is the oxidation of this LDL which causes heart disease, right? And again,
Okay.
oxidation of LDL is caused by certain endotoxins produced by a microbiome, which could be gut microbiome, which is actually lipopolysaccharides LPS.
Mm.
LPS could lead to activation of certain macrophages. There's an activation addition molecules, macrophages that leads to that form this sort of plaque, and again this leads to plaque deposition, plaque rupture, and uh, it disrupts your blood supply, and then you have heart stroke and a lot of these things. So I'm not going too much detail into this, right? But again, you need, first thing is we should consume a lot of fats. If you're not getting, or if your bile acid metabolism is disturbed, probably look at C15 supplements, right? Then spermidine is very essential for your
Mm.
mitochondrial biogenesis, for supporting your mitochondria. Then, as I mentioned, glutathione, probably NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, which is again a precursor for glutathione, is could be really really helpful, right? Then urolithin A, which is
Mm.
again, if your gut microbiome is not able to convert ellagic acid, which is found in berries and pomegranate, right? So probably you should look at urolithin A supplement. These could support your mitochondria, right?
Mm.
So these are few which I could remember. Apart from that, well, these are the basic thing which you can see. And then what another thing from a support of is spirulina, right?
Mm.
Spirulina again is an algae which is a cyanobacteria. As I discussed, cyanobacteria was an
Yes.
so
That
spirulina
was an
search.
ancient
Yeah,
bacteria.
yeah,
And
that is
you said
that
that it
they
started the
started the.
oxygen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
So essentially, you need to look at specific spirulina supplements that have SOD and that have glutathione, right? These can directly get inside the inner membrane of the mitochondria via specific transporter. But you have to make sure that your gut microbiome is actually producing bitrate. It is actually, there's a balanced gut microbiome. It is performing beneficial functions, right? Again, without that, and again, I'm not saying that look at microbial DNA, which a lot of these companies would decode the potential to produce bitrate. It is not potential. It is if your microbiome is actually producing bitrate or not, that you have to measure. Right? That's anyways we measure via
Mm.
our test, right? So
Mm.
essentially, bitrate plays a very important role in its metabolic and epigenetic impact on the mitochondria, on the cells, and directly impacts the activity of transporters that can transport glutathione inside. And again, your gut microbiome also stimulates the production of SOD, and this particular enzyme, glutathione peroxidase, right, which is again one of the key enzyme that is required for oxidation of glutathione, which is required to neutralize, to convert H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, into water, right? So essentially, gut microbiome has a very important role to play. So first thing is obviously you have to fix your microbiome. I'm not talking about taking probiotics. I'm talking understand your microbiome and understand what specific food you need to feed your microbiome so that it can bring it balance, right?
So
And
the
then
you mean to say that nutrition plays an excessively important role in balancing of the microbiome? It's not always the probiotics and the supplements which will help, right?
yeah, and
We
and
have to feed
again,
them.
yeah, and again, I'm mentioning here again, this is not a point of discussion today, but I'm mentioning here, as I mentioned, these three non-essential amino acids, which is cysteine, glycine, and glutamate, right? It is
Hmm.
not about consumption. It is about the interaction with our physiology, with our microbiome, right?
Right,
So people who are saying that we are protein deficient, or we don't consume enough protein, you consume enough protein. The point is your biology is disrupted. It's a biochemistry problem, right? Your microbiome or your biology is not able to metabolize or synthesize these amino acids into beneficial stuff, which is going to feed your biology, is going to feed your cells, which is going to promote muscle mass development and all that, right? uh,
right,
so or these microbiome actually convert in certain specific amino acid into harmful byproduct, which is causing inflammation. So
mm,
ideally you have to understand, you have to personalize your amino acid consumption to understand which specific amino acid I need and how they're going to interact with the microbiome, so that
mm.
we can actually uh, extract the benefits of these amino acids. So yeah, if you have a protein deficiency, it is not a consumption problem, it is a biochemistry problem, right?
Yes, and also we do at Gene Fithletics, we measure all the amino acids, that how their absorption is inside your body. We do give a protein fermentation score, which will help you understand that how, the protein, whether it is properly getting absorbed or it is releasing toxins due to fermentation.
Hmm.
So yes,
Hmm.
this is the kind of USP that we do provide. And also about the supplementation, a word of caution that I would like to here emphasize is that it is not always about consumption of the supplement. You need to know the exact dosage which is meant for you, not a generic labeled on a
Hmm.
bottle, right? So people who are always going for supplements, they should first understand their biology, fix it at a cellular level and molecular level, and then go for supplements as per the dosages which is prescribed to them, right?
And again, a few things I want to mention here. So, in terms of supplements, you should research properly. You should find out if these supplements are backed by research or not,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So ideally, also look at the delivery mechanism, right? So, for instance, if you are bent on taking glutathione, you should look at liposomal glutathione, which is again a sort of like a probiotic. It's like a you know a shield of fat which prevents the degradation of glutathione in in the stomach acid, right? So that is one aspect of it. Or NAC is N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor for glutathione. So essentially, these, remember, because I know all these fitness folks would start spreading that your body can, you don't need supplements, your body cannot, your body produces glutathione. No, your first of all, your mitochondria never produces glutathione, right? And there's a delivery mechanism that helps glutathione get inside the mitochondria. And again, there are only these three or four antioxidants that get inside your mitochondria, which is glutathione, SOD, catalase, right, and chlorophyll, right? So
right.
essentially, there's an inner membrane, right, which
Hmm,
again
hmm,
is there needs a transport, and transporter activities again influenced by your microbiome, right? So essentially, all these things have to be understood, and that's why I'm saying, there these all fitness folks who are spreading these, good, they are spreading education and all that, but again, they have to be very clear on the basic science. They should not lead to us pseudoscience sort of education, right?
hmm. So I think with this we have come to the conclusion, and we are going to be back with another episode, exciting episode, and that will emphasize more on the cancer part. And we also have an upcoming webinar on the breast cancer awareness on 24th of November. So, folks, if you're interested, please do join us for that webinar, because we will be telling you about some really great hacks to prevent breast cancer. So if you are a survivor, it's extremely beneficial for you to listen to that. And if you have been detected with breast cancer, then also it will help, because you'll get to know what are the hacks through which you can actually deal with these cancerous situations, and you can actually get back to a normal state. So Shan, anything?
Another, yeah, I
Yes,
want to add. So probably we'll do a separate webinar on that. But
yes.
for all our customers and potential customers and people who are following us, we have done a major technology upgrade on our platform. So we now will also tell you that in terms of recommendation, why a specific food is minimized or avoided, what specific dysregulated pathways is responsible, and what specific hacks in terms of biotherapeutics, in terms of supplement, in terms of mitochondrial support, oral microbiome support is required to modulate those pathways. Then you can also, something what we have is red flag model, where you can enter your daily whatever you consume, and we will tell you, how your daily choices is impacting your cells, your gut microbiome, your mitochondria, your oral microbiome. So again, you don't need now these variables to track those blood biomarkers or those sensory biomarkers, right? We are going to tell you real time how daily what you're doing is impacting your entire biology, including mitochondria, right? So these all are available, and again, this is going to change the entire paradigm, making entire paradigm shift in how we measure our health at cellular level.
Yeah, that's true. So thank you, Sushan. That was an amazing conversation, and that was a very detailed conversation about cellular health. And folks, keep listening to us. Thank you for following us for quite some time now, and we'll be back with another other episode soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.